Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right there from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions on the thing. This show is made possible entirely by the support of our patrons over at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, so if you like the show and you can support us over there, we would definitely appreciate it. But if you can't, no big deal. The fact that you're listening is awesome, and of course we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, ring the notification bells, all that fun jazz that we YouTubers slash podcasters tell you to do. Joining me today, we have Logan Wilkinson. How you doing, Logan?
I'm doing wonderful. It is a bit chilly here in Austin, Texas, actually. We're getting into a bit of a cold snap, a cold front. That's the vernacular. We're looking at a high of like 26 and a low of 6 right now on Monday.
Wow.
And it's currently like at freezing right now in the city.
It is 73 degrees here in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. So
yeah, a buddy of mine in Phoenix told me today that it's looking like it's going to get a little chilly. Might get down to 66 degrees in the next few days. And I was like, oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, I do have a low on Sunday of 46 degrees according to
there you go.
The app on my phone, but that'll be at 3 a.m. or something like that. When nobody's going to be really out dealing with it. Anyway, apart from the mundane topic of the weather, we are here to talk about The Emperor's New Groove. That is going to be this episode. I will throw it to you, Logan, because when we were talking, we landed on doing this when we recorded this week's That News You Care About, and we were talking about what to do for this week's episode, and you landed on Emperor's New Groove after we flirted with the idea of doing something like Sound of Music in honor of the late Christopher Plummer, but the fact that is a 3-hour musical, and trying to find time to watch that in the last few days was kind of a no-go, kind of squash that idea. So where did you decide, or why did you decide on Emperor's New Groove?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is I love the movie. I've always been a really big fan of it. I think it is in that kind of era of really underrated, underappreciated Disney movies that you could arguably push as far back as like Hercules. I feel like it's more of like an underrated film compared to like the Renaissance movies that came before it, leading through to like the early 2000s kind of time period. And Emperor's New Groove in particular is one that I always feel like is such a good movie that not enough people talk about. And there are a few shout outs that we might shout out at the end of the episode in terms of written things and oral histories about the movie that might explain why that's the case. But yeah, it was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed it. I really liked the TV show as well. And so it had been, 6, 7, 8 years, right, at least, since I'd seen the movie last. I thought it'd be fun to kind of dive back into it again.
Cool. Yeah, this was a weird one for me because I definitely have fond memories of the movie. And every time I think about Emperor's New Groove, I think very specifically back to I want to say it was probably my senior year choir trip. No, junior year choir trip in high school, because we went to Disneyland. Like we did a competition or something out in Disneyland, or out in Anaheim in California, and we did Disneyland as that was the common field trip, kind of end of the year field trip for like me really growing up from like middle school up through high school. I feel like I was probably out there like once a year as part of either a band thing or a choir thing, and going out there with like a bunch of my choir friends in my junior year. We ran around that park just being like completely stupid. And the thing I will always remember, I don't even know if I had seen the movie at this point yet, but we went on the Indiana Jones ride, and every time we would go on the Indiana Jones ride, we would just imitate Kronk in the moment where they go on like the roller coaster down into the evil lab, and we'd just be like, Yzma, put your hands in the air, Yzma, woo! and like that, we just screamed that and laughed and cracked ourselves up with it. And then I definitely also have, like, with that same group of friends, I remember very distinctly, this was the first time I ever like we ever came up with the idea of like drinking games, or at least I ever came up with the idea of a drinking game, despite the fact that like none of us drank anything. We were all like, you know, goody two shoes high school kids or whatever. But we came up with the idea of like take a shot of Coke anytime Cusco says I or me, and basically you would down a 2-liter in like the first 15 minutes of this movie, because of how selfish that character is at the beginning. And so I always think back on that of like, even when I was watching it this time, I started doing like a counter of like how quickly you would get super trashed if that was like the actual drinking game. And within like the first 5 minutes, you'd have like 10 drinks, and then I was like, I got distracted and had to like pause to do something else, and then kind of like lost track of it and stopped kind of bothering. But it was like, yep, that still holds up. Like you would mess yourself up if like that were actually a drinking game. So yeah, I have very fond memories of the movie. I've probably watched it since it came to Disney Plus. Just as like I was scrolling through stuff and like, oh yeah, that'll be a fun one to rewatch here. So it's not as like far from my mind as it sounds like it was for you. But yeah, it was great. I never, probably because I was again in high school like when this came out. So by the time any of the like follow up stuff, like I've never watched Kronk's New Groove, and I've never watched any of the TV series kind of that you touched on that was like the spin-off of it. Probably just because it was like by the time that stuff came out, I was probably going into college or something like that, and just wasn't really like watching Disney or anything.
Watching Disney Channel, yeah.
So I am completely out of my depth in the like extended New Groove universe.
Sure.
But yeah, it's definitely a fun one to always go back to. And as I kind of as you alluded to, and as we touched on a little bit before we started recording, like this is probably one of the most wild ones I've done, like in doing the extra research for that D Plus show, because I had no idea of the like troubled and very complicated history of the film. I've always just kind of like enjoyed it. It obviously came out at a time before I was like pursuing or following any kind of like pop culture media and like the behind the scenes casting and all the troubles of development and all that stuff. So diving into it here, it was like, oh man, this movie had a wild little history that we will get into a little bit when we talk through some of the trivia stuff. Before we get into that, a little bit of a history lesson. This was originally released December 15th, 2000. I want to say one of the little bits of trivia that I saw was like it was the last Disney movie released in December for like many, many years, until maybe like Princess and the Frog many years later or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Don't quote me on that, but I feel like there was a trivia of something to that effect. Just they moved to like summertime for releases and stuff like that. Other notable releases of the time here in December of 2000, you had Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. That kind of special for that came out.
Movie's hella dark.
Yeah, you had Dude, Where's My Car? Launched the same day as Emperor's New Groove.
Ashton Kutcher, I believe.
Yeah, yep, Ashton Kutcher and Sean William Scott. What Women Want, also that day in box office history. Mel Gibson and Helen Hunt. One of the perhaps, given the way the world has turned out, and especially certainly on the gaming side of things, perhaps the most influential of the movies that came out in this period, Battle Royale, came out December 16th of 2000 there. Obviously, that would go on to inspire stuff like The Hunger Games, but most notably, an entire genre of video games dubbed the Battle Royale genre because of that movie, leading to Fortnite and Warzone and all that stuff. Seeing that was released the same weekend basically here as Emperor's New Groove, I was like, oh, yep, okay, there you go. And then you also had a flurry of additional movies the following week in Finding Forrester, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Miss Congeniality,
phenomenal film,
and Castaway.
So I'm going to throw this to you in this way, Trev. I think that December of 2000 is the single most stacked movie month I've ever seen in my time on the show. That list is pretty legit.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely had a packed a punch certainly there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Castaway or Brother Out There, Miss Congeniality, Battle Royale. If you want to talk about legacy, What Women Want, Dude with My Car, maybe less so. But then Batman, plus Emperor's New Groove, that's a legit that's a great list of films.
Yeah, and it comes from an era, obviously back in 2000, before you had kind of studios really rallying behind one big movie, and then you'd have a smattering of art house things kind of throughout the rest of the week, especially as a December release. That's where I look at this list, I'm like, okay, Finding Forrester, or Brother Where Art Thou, Castaway, those ones are Castaway, all clearly gunning for some kind of awards consideration, and so you usually see those movies starting to hit November, December, January, so that they're fresh in everybody's mind for Oscar ballots and stuff like that. But yeah, seeing something seeing What Women Want and Miss Congeniality, those are clearly gunning for some kind of holiday boost, because Christmas is notoriously a very busy time at the box office. It was surprising that there wasn't more family friendly fare, Emperor's New Groove here, but also this was 21 years ago or 20 years ago now, so there just wasn't as much competition in the space. One of the little bits of trivia that I think I have pulled in here is this was the last Disney film released before the Oscars did a dedicated Best Animated Picture category.
Ooh, so that's interesting.
So and because before that it was always it's that award would just go to Disney every year, so the Academy kind of didn't rally behind it, and then ironically the first year they did it would go to Shrek, but yeah.
Shrek's great.
Yeah, so that was kind of looking back on it now and kind of putting it at that place in time, it makes sense that Disney was really the only big game in town for family friendly animated fare here, but yeah.
Trevor, do you know Sleeping Beauty was and WALL-E was too? Were there any other animated films nominated just outright for Best Picture other than those two?
Beauty and the Beast was, I believe, the first real one. Because I don't think Sleeping Beauty. I think Sleeping Beauty.
What did I say? I didn't mean Sleeping Beauty. I'm sorry. I meant
Beauty and the Beast. Yeah,
that's what I was.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast was nominated outright. I think Up also eventually was, because
I know WALL-E was.
I believe
I remember that one.
I believe Up was the year where they expanded the slate to. I'm not a huge follower, but yeah, I think that was the year they opened it up to 10 films, and so you saw kind of dark horses that were never going to actually win, but I think Up was one of them that year. I didn't remember WALL-E being nominated myself, honestly. So if you want to look at that while I dive into
it right now.
A little bit of the other
3 movies. 3 animated films have been nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture. They are Beauty and the Beast in 1991, Up in 2009, fantastic movie, and the third one is Toy Story 3.
Okay, so not WALL-E.
Toy Story 3, real sad.
True.
So was Up, I guess.
I mean, so I'll dive into it a little bit more at the end, but yeah, I just rewatched Up yesterday, so it is very fresh in my mind, and yeah,
you watched Up yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It was another one that we had talked about as a potential tribute to Christopher Plummer, and so yeah, when I was looking for something to watch yesterday, I just kind of threw Up on in the background, and especially obviously it gets a ton of praise for it, but that first 10 minutes just works as such a standalone beautiful short film kind of story that really kind of sets the tone for everything else, or sets the atmosphere for everything else. But I'd forgotten just how easily that can tug at my heartstrings until rewatching it. But yeah, Up, real good movie.
Up is again my favorite Pixar movie. I haven't seen Up in a few years now, so maybe we'll have to figure that out soon and
yeah, certainly
do a D+ on it. I love Up.
runtime of an hour and 18 minutes. If you go into, if you like look at the runtime on Disney Plus, it's like an hour and 36, and like a lot of that is all of the like miscellaneous other versions of credits that Disney Plus has. So like the Danish version and the German and all of those other things. In the Disney animated timeline of things, I had completely like technically from Walt Disney Animated Studios, this falls between Dinosaur that had come out May 19th, 2000, which was like a CGI Disney animated film, like I think their first like fully CGI one that I had completely forgotten about as a movie. And then Atlantis: The Lost Empire came June 15th, 2001 afterwards. Other like the more notable Disney animated films that came before this was Tarzan was June of 1999, as well as Fantasia 2000, but I don't really count that as it was basically just a remake of Fantasia. Also, the Tigger movie came out in February of that year, but it was like a
hell yeah,
it was a theatrically released Disney movie, but it was not Walt Disney Animated Studios. It was one of their spin-offs. Roll call. The director here, Mark Dindal, who prior to this had done Cats Don't Dance. He would go on to do Chicken Little, and he is slated currently to do an in-production new version of Garfield.
Starring Bill Murray.
Is it starring Bill Murray?
I don't know. I'm thinking back to the original Garfield.
Yeah, that was the last version of Garfield starred Bill Murray. But this looks to be maybe another new reboot of that series.
And Breckin Meyer, I think, was in it as John.
That sounds right. Yeah. Because I remember like
shout out to 2004 and Breckin Meyer living his best life. You know what I mean?
Like I remember that coming up in trivia on like the Robot Chicken DVDs. I would watch like the commentary of those. Mark Dindal, we'll get into a little bit more. Basically brought into a troubled development movie based off of his experience and time with Cats Don't Dance to try and bring some humor to what was otherwise, a big sprawling, a movie that was clearly going more in the direction of like a Pocahontas than what this movie ends up being. He also does the voice of Kitty Yzma. That was a fun little he is in an uncredited role in the film as Kitty Yzma. The writers of the film is of kind of this, final iteration of it are Chris Williams, who had done Mulan, and then he would go on to write Brother Bear, Bolt, Moana, which you mentioned you watched just recently. And this was a fun little fact that I saw. He also plays the character of Oaken in the Frozen movies in the Frozen franchise. The very Swedish spa owner. Mark Dindal also wrote the story on this, who again had also done the story for Cats Don't Dance and would go on to, help pen the story for Chicken Little. And then the screenplay was written by David Reynolds, who was basically got his start as a writer on Late Night with Conan O'Brien for a couple seasons, 93, 94. And then he would go on to write on Mulan, as well as Atlantis: The Lost Empire, Finding Nemo, and he is also slated as the writer for Garfield. So him and Mark Dindal seem to be working on that thing together. And then I pulled in a whole bunch of other names that were attached.
I was going to say, I loved this, yeah.
These are much like with Robin Hood's episode last week, there was a whole bunch of like additional story by credits on this. And I imagine a lot of these come from, and one of them in particular I can see comes from the long story development of this film. But there were so many that I wasn't going to dive into like each of their histories. But the names were Stephen J. Anderson, Don Hall, John Norton, Roger Allers, Matthew Jacobs, Doug Frankel, Mark Kennedy, and Mark Walton.
Always a good sign for movies production when you have 11 writers, I think.
Yeah. Not terrible, especially animated movies. Like we talked about with Robin Hood last week. Like you probably had a whole bunch of writers that worked on like very particular scenes of a film. especially in these kinds of movies that can be like, oh, there's like a loose through line, but they're going to go off on this specific side adventure thing that's going to be completely tangential to the plot just to kind of pad things out. And so you could have like a writer just kind of do that sequence and then slot it into, a spot where it makes sense in the movie. So it wouldn't completely surprise me on that, but also, yeah, given Writers Guild, rules and regulations, it's entirely possible that some of these people worked on previous iterations, and because of that, they got a script credit and a screenplay credit, despite not being the final people to work on it. But the starring here, we have David Spade as Cusco, of course, who I pull in here as kind of his first credit is he went to the same high school and college as me.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
damn.
Yeah.
That's a great
he went to Saguaro High School here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and then would go on to, of course, ASU, much like I did. I joked kind of in my high school years that I was kind of following the path of David Spade because he was also in. We called it the Announcers Club, I believe, and it was basically like the group of students that read the morning announcements, and I was in that as well. So that was like, and it is literally just now dawning on me of like, oh yeah, I've been like performing on mic for people since high school, because it's something I completely kind of gloss over in thinking about that. But he was known for occasionally popping back in when he'd be in town and kind of hopping in, doing the announcements and saying hi to like the office staff and stuff like that he knew. I don't think he did it while I was there, but it was one of those like stories that I heard about while I would do that. He of course would go on to kind of make it as kind of a breakout in one of the golden eras of SNL alongside people like Chris Farley and Adam Sandler and all that stuff. He was on a series called Just Shoot Me that I remember watching a lot, or my parents watching a lot growing up. He, of course, would do the films Tommy Boy and Black Sheep with Chris Farley. And then he would go on to, after this, he would go on to do stuff like Joe Dirt, 8 Simple Rules, Grown Ups, and 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter, which he notoriously, I believe, took over after John Ritter passed. He was the name that was brought in to kind of replace the late John Ritter. The Grown Ups movies and Rules of Engagement is one of his last series, and then he's doing some stuff on like Netflix now or something. I
think David Spade. I mean, this whole episode is interesting because like it's at such an interesting crossroads in, I think, each of our kind of lives as people who kind of grew up on '90s comedies and '90s just movies and films in a lot of ways. Dave, that era of SNL, right? Like those guys have been so, I feel like, influenced certainly my comedy kind of stylings for a long time. David Spade, a big part of that. Also starred in Joe Dirt, like you mentioned, which is one of my dad's favorite movies, which I always find so interesting and so curious. But he unabashedly loves Joe Dirt.
Yeah. It's definitely like I remember for the longest time being very confused by Saturday Night Live because my only exposure to it was watching reruns of the show on Comedy Central at like, Sunday afternoon or something like that. It wasn't until like years of watching it on Comedy Central that I realized it was a show that was still currently going on NBC on Saturday nights, and hence the name and stuff. I remember kind of growing up watching, after their time, but watching like the reruns of that classic era. That was also, you had like Mike Myers and Anna Carvey, kind of that batch of people. That was like my, even though I was watching it a few years after the fact, that was like my generation of SNL, certainly. Also here you have John Goodman as Pacha.
So I'm going to cut in now because I saved this when you said your David Spade fun fact.
Okay.
John Goodman, alumni of my college, back at Missouri State. So we have these 2 lead actors, each went to each of our colleges, which I thought was just a super bizarre fact when you said that about David Spade. Yeah, John Goodman went to Missouri State University.
Yeah, there you go. John Goodman, of course, probably best known for his many, many years on Roseanne and now The Conners. He of course, I certainly watched him a ton and watched this movie a ton. The Flintstones, the live action Flintstones growing up.
Absolutely, Rosie O'Donnell too.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was in a made-for-TV movie version of A Streetcar Named Desire, and I always that stands out to me because he played the same character I played when I did A Streetcar Named Desire. God, like 10 years ago now or something like that.
Interesting.
Mitch. So not Stanley, but like the supporting kind of character that I think falls in love with Blanche, if I remember that show correctly. Weird. I did the show. I played that character, and I've blocked out many memories of that. He of course will also be pivotal roles in The Big Lebowski, as well as the Blues Brothers 2000 remake, kind of replacing the Jim Belushi type character because he had of course passed. Is it Jim Belushi, or am I thinking the wrong Belushi brother?
John Belushi passed away.
Yeah, sorry. Yep.
Jim Belushi was from According to Jim.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. He also was in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which
is one of the first movies I remember seeing him in.
Okay, yeah. Playing the because that movie is very loosely, based on the Odyssey,
Cyclops,
of course, and
basically,
he's effectively the Cyclops character. Because what did I say earlier? This movie came out a week before Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So he had basically back-to-back press junkets, I'm sure. He, of course, would continue on after this era with Monsters, Inc. I included this one just for you, of course. He plays President Glenn Allen Walker in The West Wing.
He's great in it.
He has a great role in basically the TV series that followed up The Wire from David Simon, I think, Treme, which was a phenomenal series that kind of like focused on Louisiana and New Orleans in like the aftermath of Katrina, and does it.
Okay.
It is not like a documentary, but it is a series set in New Orleans in a post Katrina world, and is a beautiful kind of drama that I would probably put up there in the likes of The Wire, stuff like The Sopranos, kind of that genre of HBO series. I loved his recurring stint in Community because I am a huge fan of that series.
Head of like the engineering school.
Yeah, the air conditioning repair school.
Yeah.
And like I rewatched Community last year, and it had I'd completely forgotten some of these gags, but he comes back for like an episode, and he's just got like a ponytail. Like in his first appearances, he's very like clean cut, and he's very John Goodman. But he comes back in a later episode with a ponytail, and just kind of like explains it away as he's going through some stuff right now, and just being like, nice. And then most recently, he is on the series The Righteous Gemstones.
I also want to give John Goodman a shout out, just in general, because I really love John Goodman. I think
he's one
like
of those
weirdly like underappreciated actor in a lot of ways in terms of like breaking into the larger kind of pop culture consciousness. But he's also really good in Alpha House.
Yeah, I love
which was a Amazon Prime series for 2 years.
Yeah, I almost pulled that in here because I feel like I'm one of the only people that watched
I
like
loved
early
it,
generation because that was the generation where Amazon was just getting into original content, and it was like we made all these pilots and you guys get to like vote on which ones actually go to series.
Yep.
And I remember watching Alpha House and Betas, because Betas
absolutely.
Betas was basically like, I want to say it was like a year before Silicon Valley hit, but it was basically the same kind of premise of Silicon Valley. It was a very Silicon Valley based show. These guys have this great idea, and they're getting venture capitalists to kind of like invest in them and all that stuff. And so it like whenever I see any of that kind of era pop up, I'm like, oh, that's right. Like I watched both seasons of Alpha House. It was such a that was by the same guy that created Doonesbury, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of like the claim to fame, and John Goodman was clearly like the standout character. The like heartthrob Latino character that lived in the house.
The Marco Rubio knockoff, basically.
Exactly, yeah. I remember seeing him pop up when I got really into Riverdale a couple years back and being like, oh, hey, it's that guy from Alpha House. So, yeah. Again, just weird seeing those people kind of pop up here and there.
We need to do an Alpha
and that
House
was another one.
rewatch podcast now. That'll be 8 episodes. Yeah.
Also has, since he came up in the Garfield talk, very notable cameos by Bill Murray there in Alpha House.
Yeah.
Kind of as
That's
like
true.
the inciting incident, the politician that gets run out of the house through scandal or something like that. Anyway, moving on, we have Eartha Kitt here as Yzma, best known certainly to me from reruns of the 60s Batman, where she's Catwoman. She was one of the people who played Catwoman. And then I didn't realize how many other things from my childhood that I had watched that she was in. But she was in Ernest Scared Stupid and Harriet the Spy. And then right after this, she was in Holes. And she would go on to kind of continue playing Yzma in the Emperor's New School series. And of course, she had a storied music career prior to all that. And basically, since before the 60s, I think she'd been working pretty regularly. So, but yeah, those were the notable ones that I pulled in. Patrick Warburton here as Kronk. One of my favorite bad impressions that I do is one that I would always bust out when I did a very weird and dumb series on YouTube that was basically me reading the PlayStation Drop in character voices. I always enjoyed pulling out Kronk when I'd get to a dumb shooter kind of thing, just dropping the voice and just kind of talking like that, doing the impression of Kronk here, Patrick Warburton. Of course, I kind of broke out in Seinfeld.
Putty.
As Putty, yeah. A series I still have never really watched and barely have seen him in.
I love it.
So I knew him best from stuff like Family Guys and the Venture Brothers. He was also in the 2001 live action Tick, I think. So not the most recent one that was another Amazon Prime exclusive, I believe. But yeah, the original Tick, he was in that. He played Lemony Snicket in the Netflix A Series of Unfortunate Events series.
Fantastic in it, yeah.
He was also in Rules of Engagement. I remembered looking this up, and it's notable because they just announced it's coming back to eShops. Tales from the Borderlands, the Telltale game. And then I always love seeing him whenever I go to Disneyland and California Adventure because he is the pre-video safety guide for Soarin', California, or Soarin' Over the World or whatever, that ride in California Adventure. And then he plays a droid in the line for Star Tours, the new Star Tours. He kind of out there constantly commenting on people waiting in line, and he's very pitched up, but he has still that very Patrick Warburton kind of cadence, and so he's very recognizable. And then Wendy Malick here playing Chicha. Most notable to me because she was one of David Spade's co-stars in Just Shoot Me, but she was also in The American President. And then most recently she played Bojack's mother in BoJack Horseman. She was the voice of Bojack's mother. And then the last two that I have pulled in here are just kind of little cameo teases that I pulled in here because I was like, oh, yep, that's clearly that person when I heard them. John Fielder plays the old man who gets thrown out of the window at the beginning, obviously doing the same voice as Piglet because that is who he played for many, many years. And then Tom Jones does the voice of the theme song guy, of course, singing the opening theme, who best known in my eyes from the John Mulaney bit about What's New Pussycat, and
it's incredible,
and it's not unusual to be loved by anyone. So now we have a bevy of little trivia things here.
I'm excited about
including
this.
One of the longest bits of trivia I've ever included here, but it was so wild I had to basically include the whole thing.
Trivia. Shit, yeah, I just saw that one.
Yeah. Trivia here. Up front, we have John Goodman. John Goodman's wife, Pacha's wife, Chicha, is pregnant, and according to the DVD commentary, this was the first Disney animated feature to show a pregnant woman.
Interesting.
Because prior to that, babies always came from storks, as you know. Patrick Warburton improvised when Kronk hums his own theme song when he was carrying Cusco in the bag to the waterfall. Disney's legal department had Warburton sign all rights to the humming composition over to them. I thought that was a funny little...
Iconic. That's very classic Disney.
Of course, Disney being Disney.
Yeah.
In the scene where Cusco and Pacha are searching through the various potions, Pacha says lions, tigers, bears, and then when they come upon the potion for humans, it's missing, and Yzma says, oh my. Together, this creates the line, of course, from The Wizard of Oz, and according to producer Randy Fulmer and director Mark Dindal, they were forced to use this joke, which they detested, by then head of feature animation Thomas Schumacher. And then, here is the longest bit of trivia I've pulled in for, I think, any of these ever, but it is just crazy and completely opened up a conversation that I was completely unaware of on this. This movie was originally planned to have been a dramatic, sweeping Disney musical named Kingdom of the Sun, to be directed by The Lion King director Roger Allers and Mark Dinder, director of Turner's Cats Don't Dance, with 6 original songs written by Sting that was essentially an Incan retelling of Mark Twain's The Prince and the Pauper. David Spade was the voice of the young Emperor Manco. Owen Wilson was Pacha, a young peasant in that iteration with a striking resemblance to the Emperor, and Eartha Kitt was still Yzma, the aged royal sorceress. The movie involved Manco and Pacha switching places, except that Yzma finds out and turns Manco into a non-speaking llama and makes Pacha do her bidding. Pacha also eventually was to fall in love with Nina, voiced by a Carla Gugino, of like Sin City fame and stuff like that. And I guess Spy Kids fame, probably really the thing I probably best and first know her from. And she was the Emperor's betrothed. While Manco as a llama learns humility in his new form and comes to meet a tough-as-nails female llama herder named Mata, voiced by that 70s show's Laura Prepon, where they team up to stop Yzma's evil plan, save the country from darkness, and end up falling in love with each other as the journey goes. The resulting movie tested very poorly, and the production was suspended, even though the movie was 50% complete. Allers and Yzma supervising animator Andreas Deja left the project and moved to Orlando, Florida to work on Lilo and Stitch. And during the production hiatus, Dindal, producer Randy Fulmer, storyman Chris Williams, and screenwriter David Reynolds completely overhauled the movie, eventually throwing out Wilson, the Prince and the Pauper angle, the completed footage, and all but one of Sting's songs. As Roger Allers' take on the movie was starting to take shape, Disney management was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with the movie, feeling it was too similar to the story of The Prince and the Pauper. Test screenings, too, generated poor feedback. On the strength of this, Mark Dindal was hired to add more comedic elements to the movie. So this is all one thing that even within itself is having like a little bit of conflicting stories. Because, earlier in this same bit of trivia on IMDb, it's like, hey, no, like, Dindal was there the whole time, and this is kind of now alleging that he was brought in to add comedy to the later parts of the film, or later in development. Dindal and Allers did not get along, and essentially both began making their own separate versions of the movie. The Disney executives, although unhappy with Roger Allers' direction on the movie, held off from interfering with him, given he had provided them with their biggest hit, The Lion King, which too had had a troubled production. Also, most of Allers' crew were very loyal to their director. By the summer of 1998, it was increasingly clear that Kingdom of the Sun was not going to make its summer 2000 release date, but merchandising tie-ins with McDonald's and Coca-Cola, amongst others, meant that the release date could not be moved. Director Roger Allers asked for a 6-month extension to the release, which was denied. Allers then quit the project. With the movie on the brink of total shutdown, co-director Mark Dindal worked on a retooling of the movie. While he did this, most of his animators were reassigned to work on the Rhapsody in Blue segment of Fantasia 2000. The result of this retooling was the movie we have today. The story was rebuilt from the ground up, retaining Spade's and Kit's characters and creating a new, wackier movie that centered around Spade's talking llama, Yzma, and 2 new characters in a retooled Pacha, now a middle-aged man played by John Goodman, and Kronk. Whew! There are, I will include them in the show notes because they are also in the recommended extra reading things, but there are, a great Paste article and a great Vulture article that came out in just the last couple months, in kind of celebration of the 20-year anniversary of Emperor's New Groove, that really dive into a lot of the troubled history of the Kingdom of the Sun elements. There's also apparently a very, unreleased bootleg documentary you can find out there called The Stakeout, or the what was it, the Steam Room, something like that. I forget. What was it?
I think it's the Steam Room.
Where is it?
That Sting's wife directed.
Yeah, that Sting's wife at the time directed. It was like the Sweatbox. That's what it was, because the room where they made a lot of key decisions about the film did not have air conditioning. So it was part of like Sting's contract that his wife be able to work on a behind the scenes documentary on the movie, basically Disney, because of the troubled development, Disney had fought like tooth and nail to like keep it from releasing. Like it's really tough to find online. A month ago, it was on YouTube in its entirety, but that video seems to have been taken down, probably again from like legal challenge from Disney or something like that. So yeah, crazy wild stuff that went on behind the scenes. I did not realize until reading this that like Sting had anything to do with this movie, because the opening number I just assumed was a Tom Jones song because it's clearly being sung by Tom Jones. I did not ever think that was written by Sting. And then it's not until like you get the first credit song is very clearly a Sting song. And it's like, oh, this is out of nowhere and clearly written from a different movie. But they obviously kept it in there to keep Sting happy a little bit, I guess. Yeah, wild stuff there going on behind the scenes on this.
It was weird too, because I was talking to a friend yesterday, and she brought up like the Vulture article and was like, "Oh, that movie had like a crazy production history," and I was like, "Oh wow, I didn't know this is like permeated out at least a little bit, just how nuts Emperor's New Groove was." It is one of the essentially 3 movies were had in this one movie when you count the documentary. It is a wild story. It is nuts, and like kind of some of the articles go into too, and we'll go back to this point later on in a minute here, I'm sure. It is interesting watching and looking and reading about Emperor's New Groove and seeing just how impactful its legacy has been going forward, as it was kind of at the forefront of bringing like zany, wacky animated films back into the forefront. Mm-hmm. Kind of very, very, very Looney Tunes-esque.
Yeah.
There are some that are straight homages / ripoffs, depending on who you want to ask.
Yeah.
And like that has kind of become the predominant style of animated film in the last 20 years. And it can, in a lot of ways, be traced back to this absolutely rocky production. So it's also interesting to see it from that vein as well.
Yeah, it was another bit of trivia that I didn't pull in here, but one of those very Looney Tune homage / ripoff things is obviously the sequence of Yzma being shot out of the house and then through like the tar and feather and blah 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 and into like the piñata. That whole sequence with the kids defying all laws of time and space to mess with her on the way down the mountain. Very clearly a Looney Tunes inspired thing, and that's what I was kind of alluding to when mentioning like a lot of those additional story by people. You could have had somebody that really just kind of came up with that idea and that pitch and that sequence, and they've now got a credit on the movie as a result, kind of thing. And that might be the only thing they worked on. I'm not saying that's what happened in this case, but like that's the kind of stuff you see more so on animated than necessarily on a big budget motion picture. As I mentioned earlier, this was the final, according to Wikipedia or IMDb, it's the final animated film ever made and released before the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature came into existence, which I guess could potentially be the case because this would have been December and then they would have announced that award, a couple months later, I guess. But yeah, I don't think that really works out time-wise. So I'm sure there were other animated movies that came out in the interim, but this was the last Disney animated feature before the Best Animated Feature came into existence, which Shrek then won. Because what was the Disney movie that year that went up against Shrek and lost? I forget.
I can tell you, I pulled up a list of animated films from earlier.
There you go.
Let me pull it back up.
The original ending quote here, but probably.
Well, this says there wasn't. It was wow. Okay.
Oh, that's right.
2001 Academy Award.
It wasn't a Disney movie. It was a Pixar movie that lost.
Shrek, Monsters Inc., and Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius were the 3 nominees that first year.
Yeah. Because this was certainly in the the exciting run of Disney being overwhelmed by Pixar in terms of like people's mind share and what people thought of Disney, like traditional Disney animated. The original ending, and I say original meaning in this iteration of the film, obviously not the more Pocahontas-inspired Incan epic that you had with the Kingdom of the Sun. The original ending of this was Cusco building his large summer home on the hill next to Pacha, and Sting, still acting as producer, sent a note objecting that Cusco has not really changed or learned from his experiences if he built his excessive mansion. So Cusco instead builds and enjoys a much smaller hut that is more appropriate to the village and the peasant's way of life. And I was like, okay. And then this last little bit of trivia I pulled in myself, not from IMDb, because I was made aware that as of this recording, as we are sitting here recording this right now, the re-release of Emperor's New Groove that came out a couple weeks ago, or maybe this last week, is currently the 4th highest grossing film in the domestic box office in the United States in 2020.
Wow. Okay.
$334,000 because COVID is crazy. So yeah, it is behind new releases such as The Marksman, The Little Things, and Our Friend in the box office, and that's looking at specifically movies that were released here in 2021. So yeah, a re-release of Emperor's New Groove that has gone out to theaters is is the 4th highest grossing movie domestically in the States because we live in weird times. So okay, with all of that out of the way, how do we think this movie holds up, Logan? I throw it to you.
I mean, it's great. It's really, really funny still. The zaniness, the wackiness lands. The Looney Tunes stuff lands. John Goodman, David Spade's chemistry is so good. Patrick Warburton. I mean, I would say give me a whole movie of Kronk, but they did,
and you didn't watch
it. But it's the movie's great. Like, again, I kind of introduced it by saying it's in that era of forgotten Disney movies a little bit, and part of it is because Pixar kind of happened with Toy Story and just kind of overshadowed them. Mm-hmm. But it's so good. It's always one of my favorite Disney movies, animated movies in general, probably. Watching it again, it's still just as fun. Like, that's the thing. Like, it is one of the funniest animated movies, I think, still. And obviously being a 29-year-old adult now, like, how much of the humor works and is intended for adults is, it is a great movie.
Yeah, there was like rewatching this. There are so many jokes in here where that are intended only for adults.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The one that obviously stands out is the masturbation joke that that Cusco has there at the end of the film when the old guy punches him. He's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna need that arm later." It's like that got into a Disney movie. Okay, yeah. Like, I mean, it's subtle enough that clearly kids aren't gonna get the joke, but yeah, it's It like everything Kronk does in this movie is just like pitch perfect. So like he is the epitome of like a great standout supporting character that steals the show kind of thing. Like I love all of the angel and devil stuff that he has, which again, obviously, a very common occurrence in Looney Tunes types of comedy.
The cutaway of him just talking to himself and everyone watching him, and the climax of the movie, so good.
Exactly,
like, such a good moment.
Yeah, that's like that is the kind of stuff I would very much expect to see in a modern movie, not at all in a Disney movie, let alone a Disney movie of like the 2000s kind of thing. But yeah, it is fascinating to think about, because like everybody I know that has watched this movie loves this movie. Like I don't know anybody that doesn't like Emperor's New Groove that has watched it, but it is underappreciated in that it doesn't reach the heights of your Lion Kings and your Beauty and the Beasts that were so much more iconic in that iteration. It falls very much like a Goofy movie in my eyes, where it's like everybody loves this movie, but it is not the top tier of Disney. It is it is overlooked. The fact that Atlantis was the next Disney animated film that comes after this really speaks to that idea of like, oh yeah, this was basically when Pixar was so dominant in the conversation going back to Toy Story and Treasure Planet. But yeah, like with Toy Story starting in 1995, and then kind of Pixar releasing A Bug's Life, and then Toy Story 2 and stuff, and basically like the Pixar slate overtook the Disney animated slate in what people thought was a Disney movie.
Especially once the 2000s started, because you hit you had a 1-2-3 punch of Monsters Inc., Incredibles, Finding Nemo, Up, Cars, if you want to count that, all the way through I would say Wall-E. There was a 14-year period of just these are all great movies. The worst is Bug's Life, which admittedly is not that great, but otherwise it is a spotless record for a decade plus.
Yeah. They it's weird looking back to see that Shrek beat out Monsters Inc. Because if you had told me those two movies, I would have been like, oh, Monsters Inc. is definitely the one that won the Oscar. But it did not. Because Shrek, while good, is very much not what I would expect the Academy to deem as
I think it's because
it's
so
movie.
Different. Yeah.
Because and it is also, it was very much, I mean, it's a subversion on the fairy tale epic.
Yeah.
It is basically a direct response to 40 years of Disney. So that's probably what the Academy was voting on there. And
also, Shrek was huge.
I mean, yes,
too. That can't be underestimated either. It was massive. Yeah.
That is certainly true as well. But very fascinating stuff there. I love this movie, and it very much still holds up for me as well. I was surprised really again at David Spade, despite him being from my alma mater and all that stuff, is somebody whose sensibilities and comedic sensibilities just don't really vibe. He is too snarky, even for a guy that used to go by Snarky Starkey. Yeah. And that's his whole shtick. That has been his whole shtick since kind of his stand-up comedy days. And he's just got enough meanness to it that I don't like it. Which makes it great for the beginning part of this movie, where he is a dick, and he is joking and snide and all that stuff. And so I think the turn, seeing the sting note there about he hasn't really changed by the movie's end. I was like, yeah, he kind of doesn't. He's still probably a dick, but now he's a little bit less of a dick, at least to Pacha's family, and Pacha's home and stuff. But that took an entire journey to change him, kind of thing. I don't. I guess he's less, but he's not a dick to the old man anymore either, and apologizes. So yeah, I guess he's changed a little bit, but it's just because of the David Spadeness of it, it doesn't feel like he's changed, I guess. And yeah, I mean, this is maybe sacrilege, especially to my generation, but I never really got into Tommy Boy. I definitely never really got into Black Sheep. But yeah, that era of Spade and Farley comedy, it was fine in 3-minute sketches on SNL, but I did not want full movies of him, being that that stereotypical asshole character that he plays. And so I really don't Joe Dirt. I watched and just don't like. It does not appeal to me at all. Joe Dirt either. And I've never even bothered really with the Grown Ups movies, because that is that group of people just trying to live in the past, and I feel comedy especially has ironically grown up, and they have not. And yet you can have Adam Sandler go out and do something like Uncut Gems and just be like, okay, well, where the hell's that guy?
Punch Drunk Love too, right? Spanglish.
When he actually cares about something, he puts in a really good performance.
He's really good, yeah.
Otherwise, he's just collecting a check to take vacations on Netflix's dime, I guess.
Sure. It's funny too, because I'm not a huge David Spade fan either, but I think this role really works for me. One of the things I was just kind of thinking about is the fact that Emperor's New Groove is a weirdly good live action sketch comedy almost. They're almost just straight sketches being played out in front of you. I think of in particular the scene at the diner.
Yep.
That's just a sketch comedy skit. That's what they're doing, and it works so all the time and so on point.
That is basically noises off a complete farce, living room farce kind of thing of people constantly going in and out, the menus coming up and down, that whole thing. Yeah, is pitch perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
Timing of that kind of comedy done in animated form. Absolutely. Another like sequence that I always think of is like the whole lab sequence, like starting with like pull the lever, and then they go through the trapdoor. Why do we even have that lever?
Wrong lever.
that then comes back, at the end. Why do they even have that lever? And moments like the sequence with the map and stuff, and then them kind of like calling out and being like, "How did you get here?" And Kronk literally pulls the map down and be like, "Yeah, I don't know. By all accounts, it doesn't make any sense." Is just like great comedy because it's a cartoon. Who cares? It doesn't have to be logical and do something like they never sacrifice like reality for the joke. Is I think what makes the wacky nature of this comedy really stand out. And leads to so many just great moments like that. Like
I mean, I think Emperor's New Groove does it so like I even think of at the end of the movie where like Kronk just like pops out at the hole and like, oh, it leads right here. Mm-hmm. How convenient that is, right? And he even calls it out there. Like they're so accepting the fact that like it's sort of like like the rules don't matter, right? Like it's like a Whose Line Is It Anyway sketch. It's like the rules don't really matter. Like the points don't matter, the rules don't matter. Just all kind of just do a sketch for 5 minutes kind of thing, and then we'll go on to the next sketch. And it like constantly pays off like the refusal to be bound by the rules of the world, which usually is like kind of inferior to movies. In this case, it's a case where like it really benefits the movie to be like, like this is better. That's why, because this is gonna be funnier. And there's just like that sketch comedy DNA running through it, and like the wackiness and zaniness of it, and like it's like there's elements of like SNL and Whose Line and all this kind of stuff in it, and it just pays off so well constantly. There's so many great one-liners and throwaway jokes and
a little like
whole scenes,
cutaway gags that like reference things that you definitely wouldn't expect like a Disney movie to be referencing. But like the fly sequence being very much a like Cronenberg Fly-esque recreation of the fly landing on the spider web and being like, help me is like I remember that so vividly, and only finding out later that it's it is very much a riff on kind of other things. Even the sequence at the beginning where Cusco's telling the story and it like zooms out so far that it zooms out to like the chimp kind of like eating the bug or whatever, being a nod to like Citizen Kane or something like that. I
think so.
Is just like, okay, yeah, sure. That's like something like the lions, tigers, and bears joke is a dime a dozen. And so like I love that the people behind it hated that joke was forced into the movie. But then like the trade-off is they have these like smarter and obscure things that are not at all going to appeal to kids. It is very much like it's almost Simpsons-like in that nature where like I know so many references to like classic film because I saw it on The Simpsons, and then years later saw the actual source material or learned about the actual source material. And so this is kind of the epitome of that. It's just I love it. I love Chicha. I love like that character, like the competent, the uber competent wife that like completely and almost immediately sees through Yzma, like the very piss poor charade that she's kind of put up, and so she like buys her hubby time and stuff like that, and she and the kids kind of work together. I love I keep going back to it, but I love just everything about Kronk is just so delightful. Like the fact that he is on the surface he is the dopest of the dopes, and he is that very stereotypical like. She gets a new model every decade or so, because like they never are anything worthwhile. But like he's got such a rich like inner life in his love of cooking, and you see like it gets set up with him, creating the spinach puffs or whatever, and then like it really pays off in the diner scene that we alluded to earlier, where he the chef quits out of Cusco's complaints or whatever, and he just immediately steps in and is like, all right, I'll get you blah blah blah, and he just like runs through everything that the waitress is asking for, and just so much fun in that character. And then again, like every time his Angel and Devil pop up. I love it. I love like their back and forth. And when they like agree with one another, like wait, what does that have to do with anything? No, he's right. Like when the devil is doing a handstand, look what I can do.
Yeah.
Just so many great little things about that character specifically. It is like I have never once been like inclined to go and watch and seek out Kronk's New Groove because I don't need a full length version of that character. Like he works perfectly in the small little doses we get him in this movie. That I don't like. I just innately in my head think, oh, I don't know how well that would like play out over an entire film. I think there's a reason Patrick Warburton is an incredible supporting character in things and not a lead like in The Tick. Like when he tries to be a lead, it doesn't really work out. So yeah,
I think a big element of Kronk too is he's just got such heart to him, right? Like Kronk is just a genuinely like super good person, right? Like he just like he is a villainous henchman who doesn't know he's working with the bad guys, and is very endearing, right? Like he's got so much, like I think the fact that like the family trashes Yzma, but like just like they're all like waving at him goodbye, right? And like he's like hugging the like mom when they leave. Like it's
we'll have to do this again, like before the next family reunion or something like that.
Yeah, like it all just works together so well. Like he's just such a lovable character. He's so good. Like I couldn't remember how his arc ended in the movie, and I'm so glad that like he got like kind of that level of redemption and was able to just have that moment of like redemption for himself. And it one of my favorite things about the movie too is its level of non sequiturs. And one of the big ones to me is just like the squirrel is just there for no reason other than just to be a funny joke and a funny recurrent joke. Like, there's no reason why it wants to give like the acorn to you. I kept waiting to be like, what is the payoff in that? There was no payoff. It's just a dumb gag just to lead to the squirrel being kind of a dick. The fact that Kronk speaks in squirrel.
Exactly. The payoff is like,
it's like so good.
It sets up his end scene where he is taken over as like a junior, like not junior woodchuck ranger or whatever, but like he's like leading the kids
Boy
in
Scout adjacent thing.
Exactly. Like leading the kids in speaking squirrel or speaking chipmunk. Yeah.
This movie, I think, I mean, now we're almost in like a wrap up mood in terms of like what I'm going to give, but like this movie, I think talking with you has made me like the movie even more than I did, because just like it's highlighted just how smart the movie is in terms of how many comedic influences it is pulling from in terms of like non sequiturs, like sketch comedy, like super wacky, like Looney Tunes-esque stuff. Like it's pulling from so many different comedic influences and like doing all of them so well.
Yeah, and one of my favorite completely like background sight gags is that like I didn't catch like the first couple times I watched it, I'm sure. But then like once you notice it, you will always notice it, is when Yzma throws the poison into the cactus and then it comes back and shows you the cactus again. The cactus is like changed shape into a llama. As
I pointed this out last night,
as Cusco is turning into a llama,
Yeah, I pointed that out, to I guess on Monday whenever me and Trevor were watching, it was like that. It turned into a llama, and she was like, "Well, what? Like I didn't see it." It was like I had to like rewind and be like, "Look, that is like a llama head," and it was such a small, and like even that whole dinner scene with, like Yzma, like Kronk and Cusco and everyone there, like it's so good. Like when Kronk like runs to go save his like spinach whatever's, and he just goes like, "So, how old is he? I'm not sure. Late 20s maybe." Like that whole awkward
he seems
change
nice.
Like Kronk,
yeah.
He is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like that whole sequence is just another standout sequence of like Kronk comes back and he realizes, oh, I don't remember which one had the poison in it, so he goes and like mixes everything while he's like continuing to talk through and everything, and then the whole like gag of like, don't drink poison, and like the way he kind of like tells her, and she throws it into the thing, and he drinks it.
The broccoli heads together.
He drinks it, but like you just see it like fall the side of his face or whatever. It's a great little gag. And then like his obtuseness when she's like telling him to like
that's what I'm
bonk him over the head, like hit him with the hammer. Like Oh, got it. Okay.
Just takes a tray and smacks him on the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the movie's so good, Trevor.
Yeah. It is absolutely a wonderful stand-up. And I also love, even like as it was coming up to it, like I knew it was going to come because I've obviously seen the movie, but I love that like the pivotal moment where like the two where Cusco and Pacha had to like work together to get out of the ravine, and that becomes like a turning point in their dynamic, comes back at the end as like that's how they that's how they get up to get the vial. Even like another pure Looney Tunes non sequitur thing, Yzma as the cat falling and then being like, I don't know what you want me to do, but I was told to deliver this trampoline.
Oh, yeah, the giant
like,
trampoline.
the cutaway gag to the completely out of like left field trampoline, like is just another great like who would have thought to come up with that as a bit to like get Yzma back up there and all that stuff. Like just so many great little gags that either work as one-offs or just work in service of the greater whole.
Something we haven't even touched on. We've basically gone over like every scene that feel like the movie now. But like another one is like how it ends when they're getting chased through the labs and like he's getting turned into different animals every time. Is so like just him as like the giant whale that like cracks and like through everything and like is in the water, like don't say a word, and just like it's such a there's so many dumb small things, or like all the henchmen chasing after him.
Yeah,
it's like I'm a cow now. You can leave.
Exactly. I was absolutely just gonna bring that up. I've been turned into a cow. All right, you can go. Is like that's the 2000 version of Iron Man 3's. I don't even like these guys.
Yeah. Or like the pep talk the one animal gives, and they all jump down the hole and immediately just die. Is like such a great moment.
Because it's a lot. The line is basically like, "All right, man, nobody lives forever," and that becomes their rallying cry. It's like it is such it is just such a rich like I watched the movie Tuesday night. We're recording this on Thursday. Yeah. I wanted to go back and like rewatch it and just like jot down a lot of these moments, but I love that like just they come back to me in conversation. I didn't need to go back and rewatch it and take a lot of those notes because of just how ingrained they are in me, either through many years of rewatching or just how like beautifully comic a lot of those moments are. Because there is just so much fun joy. Another beautiful sight gag is when Kronk is trying to smuggle Cusco out of the city in the bag, and he hides up against the wall, and then it does that big like cutout shot that's just like two giant statues pointing right at him. Is like that is right up there with the cactus llama thing for me of like that's just like God. They didn't need to do that at all. They could have just had him there and continue his like little humming like repeated refrain of humming, but the fact that they like pull it out to show you another little joke and then like cut back in is just great. There's just so it is such a rich movie for comedy that one of the articles that we've kind of mentioned here, the oral history of Emperor's New Groove from Vulture, which came out, this article came out or was released January 27th, so it is like 2 weeks old basically as of recording. And basically the pull quote is, "We'll never make that kind of movie again," because it was such a departure from classic Disney. That was like a transition into future Disney, and kind of where Disney would go from there. Like, this is the kind of movie that like DreamWorks made for many years, and some of those other offshoots that were doing kind of animation in the rise of this. This is the kind of thing that like the Lego Movie, is I think very clearly drawing from, is kind of the humor of something like Emperor's New Groove.
I will say as my final thing, that quote's really, I think, apt and really insightful too, because there's no Disney movie like this before it came out, and there's not a Disney movie like this after either, because like even after this movie, Disney still has not really done that much zany, wacky stuff, really. And it is like this weird anomaly in like the arc of Disney's history where this movie came out and it was just weird as shit and funny as hell, and Disney was like, all right, cool, we're not going to take any lessons from that really. They just kind of kept doing their own thing. It's just
like
the rest of the industry took stuff from this, but Disney did not, and it's really interesting.
I mean, I can also see somebody at Disney being like that movie came out by the skin of its teeth after such troubled development. We couldn't make that movie if we tried. Like that was like the movie is such a product of necessity based off of all of the troubles they were having, I think, with it. I think like Disney. I mean, like the next time I can think of that Disney, would have such a troubled development that turned around in such a strong way would be Frozen. Some 15 years later, or whatever it was, whenever Frozen came out, that was another movie that had been, long in like troubled development history, and then goes out and becomes the biggest thing Disney's ever done because largely on the back of like a couple songs. But yeah, they Disney just gets lucky sometimes, and then other times you have something like Atlantis that just bombs so terribly that they're like, okay, maybe we shouldn't do like live action 2D for a while or something. Yeah, it is it was a wholly unique movie that I think a lot of that is you couldn't remake that kind of movie if you tried. It would just be very difficult, especially given kind of like Disney's lineage on films. Would have been hard for that team especially to try and like actually intentionally make something like this. Yeah, very solid. Obviously we've run over a lot of our favorite moments. Is there anything about the movie that you don't like that is like that you would change maybe? No.
I mean, I just think it's it is such a weird movie that like it's impossible. Like it just, there's definitely an element of like you can't make this movie again just in terms of like how crazy it was. But yeah, like no, this movie just is weird and it's great. And I loved it.
Yeah. I'm going through quotes to see if there's any others that I wanted to like point. Like I love it. We kind of touched on it, but like the sequence where Cusco's turning into all those other animals, and then like he gets back to llama. He's like, "Yay, I'm a llama again!" Oh wait, like that's a win for him. And then you have that realization. Yeah, just so many great little things there.
Squeak.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think I'm guessing we're both in agreement here that this is an A+ of a movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, total, absolute ride and ton of fun. Definitely check out Emperor's New Groove if you've listened to us kind of spoil all the jokes in the movie and tell them worse off than the rest of the movie.
That to me is always a sign of a great comedy in particular, which is like, I mean, we went over basically like every scene of the movie essentially. Because they're all so good and we had so much fun, I think, just doing it. Yeah, like the movie is just chock full of so many moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this one. You have, of course, there at the top, you have Kronk's New Groove and The Emperor's New School. You have Hercules, the live-action version of Aladdin, Mulan, the animated version, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Pocahontas, and The Lion King. And again, like looking at that list and seeing stuff like Mulan, Hunchback, and Pocahontas, like those were, the lead into stuff like Emperor's New Groove. And it is very much like, yeah, they kind of hit the highest of the highs with Lion King, and then nothing was ever going to match up against Lion King again. And so you see kind of Disney, going in different directions. And ultimately, walking away from 2D animation for a while there, altogether, in favor of 3D animation, be it, by investing more in Pixar or doing their own 3D animation stuff. Like going back and again, seeing Dinosaur as like a formal Disney animated film, I'm like, oh God, I don't think I ever watched Dinosaur, but I remember like the ads for Dinosaur and being like, oh, that looks amazing. Because it was very clearly like, hey, they're trying to do like CGI and, built off of the, still popular at the time Jurassic Park and all that stuff, and people's love of dinosaurs. But anytime it seems Disney gets into bed with Dinosaur, either Dinosaur or the Good Dinosaur from Pixar, doesn't really seem to work out for them. They can never recapture the magic that The Land Before Time caught for a generation of us growing up. But yeah, and then I will include links to these stories in the show notes as well. But you have two great kind of like behind the scenes articles that really kind of served as a resource in doing a lot of this like research and diving into like the wacky wild like real story. From the Sweatbox to the Sun is an article from Paste Magazine from December that went up kind of in honor of the 20th anniversary of Emperor's New Groove. And then the other article that I mentioned, We'll Never Make That Kind of Movie Again, an oral history of Emperor's New Groove from the people working on it here in just a couple weeks ago from Vulture. You can go check that out as well.
I strongly encourage you to check that out. The pacing in particular is not long at all.
Yeah. Extracurriculars. Anything else you're watching on Disney Plus there, Logan? You mentioned, did you actually get around to doing it? You mentioned you were going to watch some of the episodes of the cartoon.
I have not, no, but I do plan it. I genuinely am going to watch it probably like at some point in time tonight or in the next few days. Just like I need that fix. Mm-hmm. It's been even longer since we've been the TV show, so I'm also like excited to see how that holds up. But yeah, that'll definitely be something I will keep an eye out for.
Cool. I as I mentioned earlier in the show, I sat down and watched Up because it was one of those. Like I said, we in honor of Christopher Plummer, we were looking at like maybe doing a Christopher Plummer dedicated episode of that D Plus show that we just kind of like didn't end up doing, obviously in favor of this one. But it got the idea of like, hey, I haven't watched Up in a while. I want to go watch Up. And the opening sequence there, obviously great. And then I had completely forgotten how great of a character Doug is, and just like all of the humor mined from a dog being able to talk. So that is another solid movie that I think also really stands up well, and I'm sure we will do a dedicated That D Plus episode to it sometime in the future, especially, as Logan mentioned, if it is your favorite Pixar movie. So yeah, that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Logan, for joining me to discuss Emperor's New Groove, and also for inspiring the episode, because it is always a fun movie to go back and rewatch, and I had forgotten just how fun until doing it specifically for this episode. And then I agree. I agree with what you said earlier. Like talking about it with you has like just made me appreciate it that much more.
Yeah.
And I mean it's the epitome of like I miss being able to like just like see a movie and talk about that movie with a friend. Obviously we have that like for this series, but like it's just there's so much of that energy in this movie that is it like really makes me miss kind of like that we can't do that in a normal setting these days. You can follow Logan at Lefty Logie. Anything you want to give a shout out to, Logan?
I don't know. So I'll just say Trevor put in Slack some exciting teases for some Let's Play content coming soon that you should be excited about. I'll just say that.
Yeah. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I mean, I'm pretty committed to sitting down and doing it, so I'll go ahead and put it out there. I had a great time doing our Hitman kind of Let's Play stuff, and since then I've continued. I went back, even played some more Hitman like just last night, replaying through some levels, and they've started releasing featured contracts and stuff, and in particular all of the min-max 5 featured contracts went out today, so on the Dubai level. So I think I'm going to sit down this weekend and record that. So that should go out Tuesday. After if you're recording or if you're listening to this when it goes live, it'll go out next Tuesday for that Let's Play. I'll also give a shout out to the latest That Retro Gaming Show Let's Play I did that went live this morning, which is me playing Mega Man 2. A game I notoriously do not like in my adult years, despite loving it growing up and all that stuff. I just think it has a lot of problems that if any other game tried to come out being as broken as Mega Man is nowadays, it would be laughed out of the industry. And Mega Man is not, because of it would be Mighty Number 9 levels of bad. If these games were released today in the state that they are. And so I have issues with that. But I played through it, and we'll see, go watch the video to see how many of the Robot Masters I actually defeat in about...
I predicted 2 for what it's worth.
30 minutes of playtime, and I will tell you, Logan was wrong. So yeah, go check that out. And yeah, you can check out all the stuff from us over at That Nerdy Site or thatnerdysite.com, including all of our other podcasts, Let's Plays, all that fun stuff. If you liked what you heard, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that good stuff. If you are so inclined, you can always support us over at Patreon, patreon.com/thatnerdysite. It helps keep the lights on, helps pay the bills on kind of the monthly subscription fees for all the podcast services. So really helps us out and kind of is much appreciated. So it's not just me pouring a whole bunch of like my own money into this venture. Helps kind of subsidize everything on that front. Thank you, Logan, for joining me. Thank you, audience, for joining us. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other. Class dismissed.